In recent weeks, local students have begun pushing back on a state proposal to defund advanced college readiness programs. We're joined by some of them now. Jarrett Kelley, an 11th grader at Samuel Wolfson School for Advanced Studies. Good morning, Jarrett.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Anna Jones, a senior at Samuel Wolfson. Good morning, Anna.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Dylan Rowley, a 10th grader at Samuel Wolfson. Good morning.
Good morning.
And former St. Johns County high school teacher Justin Vogel. Good morning, Justin.
Good morning.
So, Justin, I want to start just briefly with the funding aspect of this bill because the proposal varies depending on what we're looking at, the House bill or the Senate bill. And we know that they're sort of in conference on this now, but the target is essentially the same, which is bonus money that goes to a school when students perform well on advanced placement curriculum. And they're proposing some pretty big cuts.
They are. I would not want to bore people with how this works in the weeds, but basically the components of the Florida Education Finance Program, which has been around for 50 plus years, the components get debated every year by legislators. And what I would say is that what they're doing right now is engaging in some serious wordplay. Now, this is not new. They've done it many times. Just a few years ago, Commissioner Manny Diaz Jr. said that this is the biggest investment. He was touting the education budget, the biggest investment ever in Florida history.
The Department of Education.
Right.
Mhm.
But we were talking about a smaller percentage of a bigger pie. And that's a trend that's been going on for 15 years. This current budget is the state budget's bigger, the education budget's slightly bigger. So as a percentage, it doesn't make sense.
Jared, this was before the city council last night. Your classmates were there expecting to speak on a resolution in support of your efforts. What was your expectation and what actually ended up happening?
Well, unfortunately, considering some of the opinions of the people on the school board and their track record of following behind what the state legislature does, I walked in there with some optimism that they would support us, but unfortunately, 6 people decided that they didn't want to, and it's very troubling because this should be a uniting issue for people across the city and across the state, frankly. And if you look at the uproar from students who are in the classrooms every day and see what's going on firsthand, see the effects that all of these budget cuts have had on our education, and when we have people on the city council telling us that we're misinformed when we've actually taken the time out of our class to do the math with these numbers that they're throwing around. So it's certainly not what we hoped to see, but unfortunately, that's what we've seen.
And we know that the vote didn't turn out as expected. Instead of debating the bill, the council voted it down as an emergency. Let's hear from Council Member Rory Diamond making that motion to vote it down.
This is not our job, and we can render this bill a nullity right now if we vote no on the emergency. And the author of this bill, I know it's well-meaning, but literally said at this dais that it is not the job of the Jacksonville City Council to be, quote, a super school board, unquote. This is not our lane. This is not our job. We should not be doing this. Just vote no against this, and we can move on.
So, Anna, as a result, the council did vote that down as an emergency. So they didn't hear from the students before they made their vote. Did that come as a surprise?
Yeah, I thought that, I went into it with full optimism, thinking that, our city would be on our side. And my speech, I had written in 2 thank yous. Thank you for hearing us. Thank you for taking us into consideration. Thank you for, just hoping that, education still has, a future in Jacksonville. I had to throw that out because it was disheartening to say for our councilman like Rory Diamond to just tell us essentially that our education doesn't matter.
And so, Dylan, after this vote, you actually had some time with Council Vice President Kevin Carrico. He spoke during the council meeting, trying to reassure students that the funding was not actually at risk. Let's hear what he had to say, and then I want to ask you about it.
You guys have nothing to worry about. Your IB programs, your CTE programs, all the things you're here to advocate for, they're going to be just fine. I've spoken to the school board president and vice president who have talked to the superintendent. The money will be allocated to the district, and it is up to your superintendent to allocate those funds to your programs, and he said that they're not going to cancel those programs. So I appreciate you being here. This is just a little grandstanding here. It's part of politics that you guys have to see, unfortunately.
So, Dylan, he says no problem.
So, he said no problem. He said the same thing to me in the green room, but I tried to kind of tell them that we went in, we read this bill as a class. I mean, we did the math, we did the research, we know what we're talking about, and it feels so disheartening to just be told your child or kids or in school or even to the teachers that came that our opinions or our voices or our research isn't important enough. That they for some reason have some better standing or better research. When we read the bill, we know what it's going to do. It will hurt schools, it will hurt these programs, but he just tried to kind of make it a political thing when it wasn't. I mean, in the bill that they were trying to pass the emergency, it was just to tell Tallahassee that Jacksonville's city council supports AP, IB, CTE, and dual enrollment programs. It wasn't anything political. Don't let them try to push that agenda to try and make it political or that it was a Democrat or Republican thing or anything else. It was just to show their support. And they show, obviously, that the Jacksonville City Council does not support these programs and just quite frankly doesn't support public education.
Jarrett, you're nodding there.
Yes, ma'am, because everything he said is exactly right. Like, they're telling us that we're mistaken, but the rhetoric and the quote unquote facts and things and these conversations they're having with the people on the school board. Well, last night, Kevin Carrico and Rory Diamond, they didn't present any facts. Their arguments would be, if they were in a debate competition, they would be disqualified immediately for their use of faulty reasoning. And
we should mention you're all members of the debate
Yes,
team, so
ma'am.
you sort
Yes,
of know
ma'am.
those rules.
Yeah.
yes, and I know how people who are debating the opposite side from me, I kind of have an idea of how they twist things to make things sound better. So I just want to point out that what the state, if even with what the state is saying is the case, State Senator Clay Yarborough is saying that we're being double funded right now, which I have a very hard time believing that because we already don't have enough money for what we're doing as is. And to explain that, we did the math, and if we're getting double funded, $852 is what they fund. If we're getting double funded and they're saying we're getting $1,704 per student, what they're saying is that the second half of that, the other 852, will be cut in half. That's what he said, would be cut in half and sent to the general fund to be used on whatever the school board decides to use it on. But I have a very hard time trusting that it'll come back to us because us three here, have already had to fight the school board to not change our schedule from 8 classes to 7 classes because of our and magnet program. And we also had to fight to keep our magnet transportation and our teachers. So we can't trust that they're going to send that money back to us. And this is completely contradictory to the message that the state is pushing out to the entire state, saying that the money should follow the student. But if our money that we're earning from our test scores is going into the general fund likely to be eaten up by the $100 million budget shortfall that the school district is in, that money is not going to come back to us. And that is completely contradictory to the claim that the state is making.
If you're just joining us, we're talking to 3 students from Wolfson School for Advanced Studies, as well as a local teacher, about state cuts to accelerated educational programs. If you are affected by those proposed cuts or have thoughts about them, you can join our conversation by calling 904-549-2937 or emailing firstcoastconnect@wjct.org. We have an email from Peter saying, the legislature and Jack City Council do not want thinkers and creators, nor highly educated students. They want docile, compliant workers, minimally educated, who do not know how to assess and challenge the status quo. We also have a call from Peter on the South Side. Good morning, Peter. Go ahead.
Yes, hi. Good morning. This is a wonderful educational opportunity for the students. They showed up thinking that it was all about the issues. Well, they found out it's not about the issues. It's about politics. It's about state politics, and it's about local politics, and it's about the Republicans closing ranks and stopping Mayor Deegan doing anything she wants. And so I think this is a wonderful educational opportunity. They are learning that, as near as I can tell, the legislator would love to defund public education, make it all private, so only the rich people can get a good education. So this is a wonderful educational opportunity.
Thanks, Peter. Anna, your thoughts? I mean, education for sure, perhaps one that's a little disappointing, I would imagine.
Yeah, so I mean, I would like to say that I'm kind of a success story for like the IB and AP programs. Because of, these programs, I've been able to stay competitive to make it into all the schools that I applied to. And without this, I mean, they're not only like, making it so that only like the rich people with access to that education privately get that, but I like I've been able to, I believe it was 24. I have 24 college credits already done. And if this testing season goes well, I will have over 3 semesters of college done.
Wow, congrats.
Thank you.
And for people who don't understand how it works, I mean, we should at least say when kids are able to get these advanced credits, they count towards their college
Right.
credits, and that way they don't have to pay for those additional classes. They're
Right.
able to save money, sometimes able to save time in terms of what it would take them to go through college.
Right. So, I mean, these advanced placement programs are great for, hardworking lower class citizens or lower income citizens like myself to, be able to get a full education and be able to like break that cycle of, like our caller just said, to be able to access that education and be educated and have good jobs.
We've got a call from Patrick in Jacksonville Beach. Good morning, Patrick. Go ahead.
Good morning. First of all, I want to say I'm very impressed with your student guests today. They're just very articulate and have really thought their arguments out well. I was a teacher in Duval County schools for 36 years, and for 14 of those years, I taught early college and dual enrollment classes at Sandalwood High School. And let me tell you, that is one of the very best programs that this district ever adopted. And over the course of those 14 years, well over 1,000 students came through my courses, and many of them were in the early college program and went on to get an associate's degree from FSCJ before they even got their high school diploma. So these programs are incredibly valuable, as are IB programs and advanced placement and all of those other things. And to do this to these students at this point in our history is just absurd.
All right. Thanks for the call, Patrick. I appreciate it. Last night's city council meeting, we know that we heard from Kevin Carrico, the vice president pro tempore of the city council, talking about grandstanding. I just want to hear what the bill's sponsor, the resolution sponsor, Matt Carlucci, had to say in response to that.
This is not, through the chair, grandstanding. This is providing a platform for high school students to come say what they think. The money in Tallahassee should just be left alone, but it's not. And there's 3 different things that could happen with that money if you've been keeping up with it. So we don't know if that money will go back to these kids. And to not allow these kids to have a chance to speak what they think and then us vote, then shame on the Jacksonville City Council. I've never been as ashamed as I can remember.
We know that Matt Carlucci actually left that meeting. He said it was the first time in his many years on council that he'd done so. Justin, this money, as Jarrett was saying, is there's a little bit of a convoluted path, and it seems that there's some people in the House and the Senate that themselves are not sure, kind of how this money would be preserved or not, whether it would follow a student, whether it would be divvied up between private schools and charter schools once it is, put back into general funds, whether it would be just for high school students or whether it would go to all students in elementary school classes who don't have IB and AP classes. So a lot of uncertainty. But one thing that the Senate bill does say is that there's going to be a savings of $292 million. Where is that money going to come from if it's not cutting from somewhere?
Okay, so first of all, I was the chief negotiator down in St. Johns County for 6 years and on the team for 8, and that's how I kind of got to know you, right? And you knew who I was, and
Working with the union.
right, right. And so I negotiated against CFOs and HR directors, and I would not want to debate these 3. They're very prepared. So a nice balance of claims and evidence. But here's what's happening right now. So without getting into all the acronyms and all this stuff, but a full-time student is 900 hours, 25 hours a week, 900 hours of instruction, a full-time equivalent, right? FTE. If they pass an exam, we're talking about either 0.08, 0.16, or 0.30 weighting factors, and that is what they're cutting in half. If you go to House Bill 5101, click on analysis, right? And page 4 tells you cut by 50% these things, right? Now there's another one, ESOL, English for
Second language.
right, second language, and that one's not being addressed. It's not being cut by 50%, but they are cutting these advanced programs. And the reason why is because somebody figured out, my guess is they fed it through the sponsor, Jenna Persons-Mullica from Southwest Florida, that somebody figured out that the way this money flows, that add-on money, if you pass the exam, right, and what it means to pass gets debated, but that money goes to the district, right, at $800 and something goes to the district. Now we point to another law. That law says that at least 80% of that money must flow to the school where those students generated the money. So let's say 80% of it. So, $600 and something are going to the school. Now the school has to pay for the AP exam. That's either $100 or $150 depending on the exam. The school has to pay for resources to provide that testing, right? The school has to pay the teacher the $50 because that's in the law, $50 per student who gets who passes the test. So all of that adds up, and then the rest can be spent on things that directly support the students who generated those funds. Now, that is a little bit ambiguous, and somebody figured that out, that there's this large amount of discretion at the local level. Now, I've been immersed in Florida education politics for 15 years, and I heard over and over again, local control, local control, local control. It doesn't get any more local than the actual school, right? The school gets to make a decision on how we support those students. Now, that could be professional learning for the teachers that teach them. That could be resources for the students themselves that are tangible. It could be a lot of different things. But because it's a little bit ambiguous and because there's a high level of discretion, they don't like it in Tallahassee. They like to centralize power. They like to centralize control of the money. So what they did was they're proposing to cut that money in half, add $62 to the base student allocation, and then claim the money's following the students.
Jarrett.
Oh, yes. So
How'd I do, Jarrett?
that was good.
All right,
that
good.
was good. So what I also want to bring to people's attention, I want to clear up some of the misconceptions that people have because I'm also aware of what he just said. They tend to throw around a lot of words. They're just words that kind of get people feeling a certain kind of way.
Right.
But the first one that I already cleared up was the money should follow the student. That one is the first one that's clearly that's just not something they actually care about. It's something they use to justify these awful things. But another thing that they're saying, another reason why that doesn't make any sense is because they want to change. Also, a part of this is to change the way the schools are funded for these programs. It's no longer going to be $852 per student in the school. It's going to be $852 per the estimated number of students in the school. So to explain that to everybody who's listening, our school could have 1,000 students next year, but they could estimate that we're only going to have 950 because that's what we have now. We'd get $852 times 950 instead of 852 times 1,000. That leaves us with a 50 students that are completely unfunded.
Mm-hmm.
That can be detrimental to a school because now you have 50 students that's 2 classes worth of students. So that's 2 class periods for 8 subjects that are completely unfunded. And there's no way that logically, it doesn't make any sense how there wouldn't be any sort of tangible or visible changes with that much loss of funding. There's just no way. And also, as my Dylan over here said about Kevin Carrico, who said that the programs won't be canceled. Okay, if they're not canceled, they'll still be cut. That's the point that everybody needs to understand. They'll still be cut. And any cut right now would be detrimental because we're already on the brink of not having enough money as is. Our principal actually told us a few weeks ago when we were talking to him that ever since our school switched from being a normal traditional high school to a magnet school, it took them 4 years just to break even on all of the additional costs of these programs because they weren't getting the correct funding.
Right.
So,
and Wolfson actually has like kind of a 501c3 to
yes,
help fill
exactly.
some of those gaps already because there is
Right.
not enough funding.
Yeah, and it still took us 4 years.
I want to take a call from Cody on the South Side. Good morning, Cody. Go ahead.
Good morning. I would just like to talk about how detrimental these cuts would be to me as an IB student in the IB program. The rest of my high school is basically dependent on the funding that we get from this. Is a lot of the money our school receives is from this funding, and without that, it would be a huge loss for the rest of my high school career. With having my eyes set on prestigious colleges that I won't get into, because of all this funding, it like helps me out so much, and I don't understand how cutting it would be a good idea.
Cody, thanks so much. Appreciate you calling in today. We also have a call from Michael on the South Side. Good morning, Michael. Go ahead.
Hi. So I also go to that same school that Cody, Jarrett, and Dylan all go to. One main concern here as well is that, as Jarrett mentioned, we barely have enough funding to get by. If you look at our news headlines recently, we've already had schools close and merge. So if we keep taking away funding, how are we supposed to support our educational system for future generations, let alone currently?
Thank you, Michael. We also have a call from Tommy on the North Side. Good morning, Tommy. Go ahead.
Hi. I was just calling to kind of double down on what one of the students was saying. Congressman Carrico, I believe, had said that that everything was fine. And that this was just
Council member
political gain.
Carrico. Yeah, council member
Councilman,
Carrico.
I'm sorry.
Sure.
And I just wanted to say, if you look at the bill, Senate Bill 7030, it has changed a good bit. If you look at the most current version of the bill, they've actually taken out the portions with AP, IB, et cetera, and they've moved it over to amending a separate component. It's like a statute 1011.62, but it's not very clear at all to somebody who's trying to look at this thing and figure out what they're doing. And I think that convolutedness on top of this push to kind of defund public schooling, the optics aren't good if you're going to sit there and say everything's fine. So that was all I wanted to say.
All right. Thank you.
That's the point.
If
Go
I'm
ahead,
allowed
Anna.
to add on that, to kind of build what that last caller just said, a lot of what these legislators do is they make it that convoluted so that the regular citizen doesn't understand. They allow for, like, kids who this is actually affecting, for us to not understand it. And it takes someone who's read policy before, like us, to really delve deep into where this is going, what's happening with it. And they're brainwashing the regular public into thinking, oh, this will be fine with the way they word things. And the reality is it's not. They're twisting their words, they're twisting the legislation, and they're hurting everyone in the process.
Well, I want to ask you about your response. I mean, we've been talking about the city council, which doesn't actually, other than this proposed resolution, doesn't really have any authority on this matter. But I'm curious about the response that you've gotten from lawmakers in Tallahassee. I mean, we reached out specifically to 3 local lawmakers, Wyman Duggan, Clay Yarbrough, Tracy Davis, to get their take on this proposal. We haven't heard back from any of them, but what have you heard back?
So we during class actually, so our principal sent out a mass email because nobody knew about this until after it was being
couple
passed.
days before.
A couple days before, to where they're all in session, so we couldn't even really reach them. But we sent emails, got auto-generated response from Tallahassee. We called them, they wouldn't pick up the phone. They said they're secretaries or people that answer the phone for them would say, oh, they'll give you a call back or something like that, but they won't give you a call back. They won't listen to any voices that aren't for them. And it's really an eye-opening experience. Even in your local, even in the city council, they wouldn't listen to our voices. And Kevin Carco, when I actually talked to him, he said, why don't y'all go to the school board meetings and talk about this? Why don't you call representatives and all that stuff? And I told him that they don't respond. They don't listen to us. And even the school board don't listen to us. So if our own city council, our school board, our representatives don't listen to us, it just is terrible. And I also want to say that the voters that vote for these representatives, even if you're retired, which most of the people in Florida are, and this doesn't directly affect you, please be on our side for this. Please do your research onto this, watch the news about stuff like this, and don't vote for these representatives who voted for this to happen. I mean, it doesn't really affect most of the people. Well, I wouldn't say most of the people, but a large portion of the people in Florida. And because of it not doing that, these people that are retired, they don't care. They just will vote for somebody who will lower their property taxes. And it's terrible that they don't care about the voice of students. They don't care about the voice of people who might not be the absolute majority or might not be the easy vote to get in Florida. And Kevin Carco showed me that he even said himself that, which I believe is a complete lie. With all due respect to him, I think he lied to me when I was talking to him in the green room. I asked him, so what? But if y'all got this resolution, y'all could state representatives will have to listen to this, or they'll at least be able to see their support of the programs. he told me that no, we would probably just get the same auto-generated responses y'all do, which is just not true. Like, you're the city council of a city in their state, and I think it's ridiculous that he tried to act like I wouldn't know my facts when he was in the green room. He acted like the kids wouldn't know what we're talking about, or even anybody that was there. It's ridiculous. I mean, I even questioned his logic on it, because why would there not be teachers or anybody at the city council meeting clarifying that we're wrong on this? Why was there only people saying how terrible this is, how detrimental it is for all these students? And why is there no media coverage clarifying this? Why was there no media coverage of this bill before it was already in Tallahassee, or even that this was brewing? It's ridiculous,
Can I answer
and
that
I
question?
think it's terrible.
I'll answer that question. The reason why there's none of that is because it's not actually happening. And all of this is a part of a broader scheme to, if you look at the next bills that they have accompanying this one, it's all a part of a broader scheme to destroy public education. And there's nobody to support them on this. That's the reason why they have to say all these things. And they expect people to just go home and just listen to it. But that's why we're here, because, you know, we're trying to tell people the truth. And we went to the city council because we felt like they would be able to give us the voice that we needed, because our messages were falling on deaf ears. And why it's important for everybody to be concerned with this, even retirees, everybody across the city, whether you have students in the programs or not, because this affects our workforce as well. If we don't have people who are highly educated or trained to do ECT programs, you don't have to go to college, trained in vocations. If we don't have those things, we're not going to have a competitive job market.
And I want to add one more thing, because I know our time is getting to an end. This is not a Republican or Democrat issue. This is bipartisan.
Yes.
And Senate Bill 7030, only 2 people voted no. That means like almost the entire Florida Senate agrees that they think that Florida education should be cut. And I have friends who are known for, being more right-leaning, friends who are being more left-leaning. And we're all fighting our school boards, the state. It's not. Don't let them tell you it's an anti-Republican bill. It is not. It's bipartisan. And
Yeah.
Rory Gilmore, not Rory Gilmore, I do apologize. Rory Diamond, he tweeted last night that we were trying to attack the Republicans in Tallahassee, which is just absolutely not true. We are fighting for our access to education.
Let me also note, just for 1 second, that Kevin Carco, I mean, I think it was specifically Karen Carco and Roy Diamond. I think it was specifically more Karen Carco. But there was a girl who went on the podium and was trying to express how she now is like close to being certified to being like a biomedical person. And she was expressing her emotions, and she even started crying. And she said, "Why won't my city councilman, why won't y'all look at me?" Called them out by name. "Why won't you just look at me?" Because our city councilmen were on their phones, walking out, not paying attention, looking down. I think Roy Diamond was bouncing in his chair while these children were giving important things, trying to express how important these programs are for them and how detrimental they are. They looked all through these bills, but they didn't even give her the respect to look her in her eyes when she begged them to while crying on the podium.
And
I think we need to know all this stuff about our city council.
And Jared, just in the last seconds that we have.
I just want to read this awful tweet that our elected official tweeted last night after droves of students came to the city council to express our disapproval. He said, "Grateful the Jacks Council shot down this latest effort to divert our attention from city business to attack Republicans in Tallahassee." Now, I would say to that, this is city business. This is about the futures of the students that they represent, the futures of the constituents that they claim to represent, and the future of the city they claim to love. So I don't see how this is not their lane when this is quite literally their constituents and the people that put them in those chairs.
May 2nd is the end of legislative session, so that's the timeline. May 2nd.
Get involved.
Well, Justin Vogel, Jarrett Kelley, Anna Jones, Dylan Rowley, thank you so much for being here. I'm very impressed by your advocacy. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank you.
you for having me.